And joining me now is Dawn Smalls. Ms. Smalls is an attorney who previously worked in the Clinton and Obama presidential administrations, and she'll be on the February 26th special election ballot on the No More Delays party line. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get into your candidacy for public advocate, tell viewers, tell me a little bit about your background and your resume and what brought you to this race.
Sure. So first and foremost, I'm a mom. I have 3 kids, ages 3, 5, and 7. I'm also a lawyer and a partner at one of the top litigation firms in the country. I'm coming to this race with over 2 decades of experience in law, government, politics, and philanthropy. In the Clinton administration, I was the assistant to White House Chief of Staff. And in the Obama administration, I was the chief regulatory officer and part of the leadership team that was responsible for the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, which of course made health care a reality for millions of Americans. For the last 3.5 years, I've served as a commissioner for the Joint Committee on Public Ethics. I was appointed to that position by Andrea Stewart-Cousins, and that's the agency that has oversight over the governor, the attorney general, the statewide electeds, the state assembly, state senate, as well as the lobbyists in state. My experience at HHS is particularly relevant to the public advocate's job because I have experience breaking through bureaucracy to get results, and that's what I want to do for New York.
So a little bit more on your background before we get into this race in particular. You've worked at the highest levels of federal government. You've had some oversight, as you said, of state government. Now you're looking to serve in city government. What's your general sort of philosophy of government? What have you learned? What does government generally need to be about, in your view?
Well, as a Democrat, I really believe in government as a force for good, but only if it works. And being in the bowels of the federal bureaucracy, I have seen it close up how the bureaucracy can actually stymie policy and stymie goals. And so, you know, for me, it's about making efficiency, finding out the things that are not working as they should, calling those things out, offering solutions, and making sure that New Yorkers get the services that they actually deserve.
Why is bureaucracy, why does it become such a problem, and why especially do Democrats who favor a larger role of government need to be so wary of it? I mean, you've said that a couple times now about breaking through bureaucracy and translating that to becoming public advocate if you're victorious. How does that happen? Is it about you know, civil servants and unions and, you know, some of that, or what is the issue?
Well, I think a lot of it, I mean, just based on my experience, is based on people, an inability to think about doing things differently. We've always done it this way. We've never talked to that person. We can't, you know, break through this process and streamline it because we have to go through these 10 steps. And when you dig in, you're like, are these 10 steps really necessary? Can we break it down to 3? And so unless somebody is really forcing that conversation, at least that was my experience at HHS, that's what slows progress and that's what slows policy down.
And is your approach, are you someone who in those instances, you take a very hard line, you're very sort of tough in breaking those barriers? Or how do you sort of characterize your leadership style?
Well, I love giving the example of the Mental Health Parity Act, and that's a regulation that provides that every health insurer that provides medical surgical benefits also provide in parity mental health benefits. And that was a regulation that was presented to me and my team, and it had a very short timeline, and it required not only implementation at HHS, but it also required implementation at the Department of Treasury and the Department of Labor. So if you think about how you know, laborious a process is within one of these agencies, a tri-department regulation is a really a tall order, and people looked at it and just said, there's no way. I mean, there's no way we can get this done. We need to put this to the side. We were also working on the Affordable Care Act and other issues. And I said, absolutely not. This is something that is really going to make the difference for millions of Americans. I just started picking up the phone to other political appointees, just said, we have this reg, can we sit down and have a meeting? And I was able to establish a process establish a team to actually write the reg, and then an expedited clearance process to make sure that it moved within each of our departments so that we could get this regulation out and have it start providing the benefits that people so critically need.
All right, Jacob, you served on this body. You're appointed, as you said, by now Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins. How did that happen? I mean, you've been working in the federal government. Mm-hmm. How did you get appointed to a state regulatory body?
I was recruited. I was asked. I was actually pregnant with my third child and had just come back to my firm and was not looking to take on something additional. And Senator Stewart Cousins called me and said that she had gotten my name and had been holding out her appointee because she really wanted somebody good. I kind of demurred and said, look, I'm pregnant. I have 2 kids already. And she said, this is what working moms do. You absolutely can do it. I need you to get in there and do this. And so I accepted the appointment and served until I resigned to pursue this office.
Okay. And just lastly on that is, are you of the mind that Jacob has really not been designed to do its job? There's people who say, it was a political compromise and it's been compromised by the politics from its start. What's your perspective, having been on the inside?
So I definitely think Jacob is not as strong as it can be, but it's by design, and the legislature has the power to make a more robust ethics agency. I think the unfortunate part for me, having been on the inside, is that there are so many people, staff and commissioners that work so hard within the constraints that they do have. It is ironic to have the legislators that have the power to fix it and make it more robust and a real meaningful agency just continually pillory the organization and the people that are trying, to ensure that the ethics laws are complied with in state.
All right, well, we could talk about all that a lot more, but let's move on to your public advocate candidacy. You've worked at the highest levels of federal government. You've been a litigator, as you said, at a top law firm partner. Why do you want to be public advocate? Why come into city government and fill that role? Why does that speak to you? Why are you pursuing this so hard? And I've been watching this race closely. We've spoken before. You're obviously campaigning very hard. You've raised a bunch of money. You're in it. You're at all the forums. You're traveling around the city. So clearly you want this job.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I mean, I believe that we are living at a time where our collective children will ask, where were you and what did you do? And for me, it has been a very personal reflection about what my answer is to that question. While we are under assault in Washington and by a president that is completely hostile to the progressive values that I think many of us hold dear, as well as the communities of color and immigrant communities that we all consider integral fabrics of our community, I think the focus should really be on local. I think that's where we can make a real difference. And so I have decided to use, whatever experience or talents that I have in service of making New York City better, and specifically make New York City government work better on behalf of its residents.
So how do you do that as public advocate? What's your pitch to voters? You say, okay, here's why I want to be public advocate. This is the moment to step up. Here's why I think I need to step up, why my experience is valuable, and what's the pitch about what you would do as public advocate?
So as public advocate, I would tackle the critical issues that I think affect every New Yorker, no matter what their borough or their station. And I have a little bit of a different perspective on the public advocate's job than I think some of either my predecessors or my opponents. It is broader than just the 5 boroughs. I'll give the subway as an example. I don't think when you look at the mandate of the public advocate's job, which is to be the independent check on the services that New Yorkers get on a daily basis, there is no service that is more fundamental than the subway. And the fact that it is not primarily within city control, I don't think that should deter the public advocate from taking on whatever needs to be done to make sure that we improve those services. The public advocate is elected by all 5 boroughs the same way the mayor is, and My philosophy on that is if the mayor can go to Paris, the public advocate can certainly go to Albany. And so, my approach is about bringing all stakeholders together that impact the services that New Yorkers need, because if you don't do that, there's no way that you're actually going to move the ball forward and see results.
So you, as I mentioned at the top, your ballot line is no more delays. That seems to evoke what you just brought up as seemingly your top issue, which is the MTA, transit, something millions of New Yorkers rely on every day. Is there something about that you know that you want to fight for change? Is it more just about speaking out on whatever the issue of the day or the week might be that's sort of in the press or at a hearing and you say, okay, here's where I'm going to focus in on? Or is there something you know you'd fight for?
Well, I'd say I have three top issues. The subway, affordable housing, I don't want that to get lost because that's a critical issue for all New Yorkers, and making sure that the working class families and working class businesses can continue to operate here, as well as homelessness, where we're in a situation where there are more children 6 and under that are homeless in this city. With respect to your question about homelessness, with respect to your question about the subway, I believe that having a team of people that live and breathe the subway all day, every day, will help move progress on this issue. Every benchmark
team in your public advocate's
in
office.
my office, every benchmark, every deliverable, every funding stream, so we don't have to wait for an expose to come out 6 to 12 months from now to know what's going on. There would never be a situation again where the governor takes $5 million from the MTA and subsidizes some upstate ski resorts, because there'd be somebody watching that day in and day out. And so with greater focus and greater communication to the public, and also with an eye towards offering solutions and additional ideas about how we can move the ball forward, I think we can make real progress on this issue.
Other focus area, housing, homelessness, those are obviously connected. What do you have to say on that? Are there certain policies you think should be pursued? Is there the oversight function of the office that you think needs to be more robust in some way?
So I'll talk a little bit about affordable housing, and I think we need to focus much more on deep affordability and ensure that we're not approving developments that have a starting income that no one that lives there now can actually afford. When we do that, we're building in gentrification. And so that's something that we need to have a watchful eye on the front end rather than the back end. There's communities like Inwood where, one of the last affordable bastions in the city, that we need to make sure that, the benchmark is not set at $2,500 as an affordable housing, but make sure that it's really calibrated to the income in that area. I'd also say one of the things that I would do as public advocate is sue NYCHA. The public advocate has a limited suite of litigation powers, but one of the things that the courts have really affirmed the right of the public advocate to sue on is the right to demand information. And so in a situation where we're not clear about these repair requests, we're not sure how quickly they're being turned around, who's managing them, I think that's an area that's ripe for a lawsuit. And I've stated that I would do that within my first 30 days.
And so to follow up on that, coming with your background as an attorney and litigator, would you continue some of what the previous public advocate, Letitia James, did in terms of staffing the office with a lot of attorneys, or is that not what would be a main focus for you? It's more of the oversight that you mentioned with the transit and housing and homelessness. How would you sort of balance that with what's a good budget, but it's relatively small compared to the rest of city government?
Yeah, so I think attorneys can do a lot of things. I wouldn't staff the office with the attorneys thinking that everybody would litigate. I want people that know or are going to focus on transit, and I want affordable housing experts that may or may not be attorneys. I will need some lawyers in that office because, as I said, I will be within the first 30 days suing NYCHA, and so we'll want somebody that can actually advance a lawsuit with my guidance.
So we have about 2 minutes left. A couple more questions. You're in a field of 16, 17 candidates. 17 names will be on the ballot. Not all are actively seeking the position anymore, but many of them are elected officials or former elected officials, and many of them have a deep background in city government. What do you say to somebody who says, Do you really know city government well enough to take this position, you know, to jump to a citywide level? Do you have that level of expertise in how city government works?
So I think it's just voters need to make a choice about what they think is the most important qualification. The fact is, you know, I was talking to somebody that works in city government now, and they made the observation that, you know, New York City government, the only thing that is analogous is federal government, just given the size, that people really underappreciate the complexity of city government and the size and depth of it. And so having somebody that has experience in the federal government with an eye towards making government work, I think is actually a very unique and particular qualification for public advocate. I am not the city council person or former city council person that has tracked every bill that has come out, whether it's been successful or not. If that's your qualification for who should be the next public advocate, then I'm not your candidate. If you want somebody that has, as I said, over 2 decades of experience in law, government, politics, and philanthropy, that's focused on bringing innovative solutions, that knows how to bring a lawsuit where it's necessary, and is really focused on calling out government, finding out where we're not doing well, and then offering solutions on how we can do better, then I think I'm the best candidate for the job.
Okay. Well, I think we'll leave it there. That's a good way to close it out. Dawn Smalls, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care.
All right.